Awesome. So welcome to the July 7th, 23 group coach for SASO University. Today, I really want to focus on closing in the DMs, closing on calls or in meetings. And then I also want to focus on pivoting the offer and closing in the DM. So basically, when we need to use audibles, when we need to uh, pivot on the fly to make sure that we're closing the deal. So if you have any questions, raise your hand. Otherwise, if everyone doesn't mind, just putting yourself on mute so there's no background noise or anything, or people, I know we have families and things. I've got dogs, so at one point they're probably going to go crazy. So forgive me for that ahead of time. Um, but what we'll do is we'll jump into the call structure, or the closing structure rather, overcoming objections, the attitude to use when overcoming objections. And then we'll explore a little bit on the overall process because I know, um, most people are doing pretty well. There's a few who are struggling to land their first couple. So I do want to cover that if anyone on the call is in that situation. And then we'll cover some questions I've had people DM me. I won't out anybody, but I'll basically cover some questions that I've seen frequently popping up in the DMs. So with the closing, most of you have seen, and there's actually gonna be a training coming out over the weekend that I think a lot of you guys are going to really enjoy. I don't want to share the full training on the video call since we do post those for everyone to see. But essentially, it's the 10-step closing process for that vertical SWAS offer, which is what we're offering, right? So just a very quick recap of what that is. Essentially, once we get, this is the full close, right? So we have the full close is when you're in a call, presentation, face to face. Then you have the modified close. Now, the modified close essentially is going to be like very impromptu. You reach out to someone, they reach out to you, you bump into someone who owns a business and you go straight into this modified close, right? So the difference is modified is not scheduled call, not a scheduled meeting. The actual close, the plain and simple close is we scheduled a meetup session. We're having a formal meeting. This is the framework to follow. The gist of the close and the modified close at the end of the day is always the same. You want to understand where they are, where they want to be, the time frame in which they want to do it, and what kind of perceived level of effort or versus actual effort needs to go into it, right? That's essentially the long term. That's essentially the long game. And John is thumbing up because I don't know how much he shares with you guys, but essentially he's got 6 leads that he's closing one after another, and he's only using the modified close right now. So we're going to cover all of that, but essentially the full framing structure, right, the full close structure is of course going to be the opener. So 2 minutes, and the training I have that's coming out this weekend, it has the time frame next to it, but the goal is to close these clients within about 30 to 60 minutes. That's the goal. So 30 minutes should include discovery, asking the questions, asking where they are, where they want to be, why they're not there yet. All things we're about to cover in 2 seconds. And then the next 30 minutes is essentially handling objections, which I want to cover here on the call. So we'll also cover how to handle those objections on the call, face to face, over the DMs. At the end of the day, I want to preface this. At the end of the day, the biggest difference between closing with your voice or closing over a message, right? Because if you're on a phone or if you're in a video chat like we're at right now, it's the same. You hear my voice, I hear your voice versus DMs, texting back and forth, even email, which this may surprise a few people. With the DMs, you want to get straight to the point, no fat, no fluff, straight to the point. You want to be not translucent, not opaque. You want to be transparent. So essentially, how do you do that? Opaque is too passive. That's why we talk about when we're reaching out to people, we don't want to say, oh, wow, like you did a great job mowing that lawn. You did a great job with that plumbing job. Like, how much did that cost? Like, what was that job entailing? It sounds like a customer, right? And they're going to think, oh, this is a customer who's interested in hiring me to do something similar. That's too opaque. On the other hand, too translucent. You just DM them, hey, this is what I do. Like, I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this. Are you interested? Yes, no. And they say no. And you're like, well, why aren't you interested? And if anyone who has, I know Josh mentioned he has VAs. Anyone who's been approached by like a VA or a Fiverr contractor, they usually DM very translucent. Hey, I have one where it's like, hey, business owner, like they didn't even put my name in, like no effort. Hey, business owner, I do this. And it's like emoji, green checkbox. And it's like, SEO optimization, and they might be great at what they're doing. 9 out of 10 times they're phenomenal, but the marketing, the closing is not there. So that's what I want to cover. I want to cover here. But the big gist before we jump into it, if you take nothing away from this call, is going to be this. When you are using written text to close, get to the point. Be very, very, very concise as possible. I want you to be almost monotone, almost bored. Because think about it, there's no inflection, there's no tonality, right? Like the Wolf of Wall Street says, there's no tonality, there's no pitches. So you have to get straight to the point. You have to be very direct, not aggressive, not abrasive, but very direct. So for example, they reach out to you. Hey, I'm interested in what you do. Cool. Walk me through where you are with everything right now. This is the modified close, right? Where are you currently? Walk me through where you are. You're going to want to include, of course, niche specific questions. I'm working with, let's see what John says. The less they think you need them, the more they want you. Yeah, it's all about, and especially we're going to cover that, how we use silence to close people. I don't know if other people have used this quote, so I'm not going to say this is my quote, but I was writing something today and I was like, oh, this is great. I can't wait to share with you guys. But yeah, the less that you speak, the better it's going to be, especially on those DMs. So for example, they reach out, hey, I need help. This is my situation, blah, blah, blah. Cool. Walk me through where you are. Where are you with clients, revenue, profitability, niche specific questions. If you're talking to lawn care or home-based services like cleaners or anything in that realm, right? Hey, what is your route density? That's very specific. If you're talking to an accountant, hey, what's your monthly recurring revenue? Like, do you have people that have you on retainer, or are you doing mostly one-time gigs? Are you mostly a tax strat, right? So you have to understand your industry. Nothing revolutionary there. You have to understand your industry to know what questions to ask, but there are blanket generic questions. How much are you bringing in monthly? Is that consistent? Is that inconsistent? How many customers do you have? How many people do you have on your team? What's your profitability? What's your revenue? And I always follow up the question, right? This is what I said verbatim. Walk me through where you are with everything, your revenue, your expenses, your profitability. Feel free to share whatever you want to share. Don't share anything you're not comfortable sharing. And I leave it like that. Like, give me ballpark figures. Because some people are really weird about that. I don't want to share that's fine. Walk me through where you are. Whatever you're comfortable with sharing is great. Whatever you're not comfortable, don't worry about it. Right there, again, I'm not being picky. I'm not being pushy. It's that soft sales. They're getting to see my personality through all of my questioning. They're seeing that I'm laid back. I'm not pushing it. I'm very comfortable, right? So, hey, where are you with everything? They tell you all these questions. You ask follow-up questions. The analogy I'm going to use till the day I die is going to be dating. It's very similar to dating. If I ask, I'm going to speak it from my personal experience. I don't want to project on anyone, but if I ask my wife, hey, how was your day? And she tells me about her day and I don't ask a single follow-up question. If anybody has a spouse, what's the reaction going to be? Like, are you even listening? Do you even care? Right. But if she's saying, hey, I did this, this, and this, and I go, oh, wow, that's crazy. Like, what happened here? Well, what did she say when you said that? Well, what did you do when that happened? Okay. Well, why do you think that happened? Most of the time, especially with your spouse, they don't really want you to solve the problem. They just want to they just want to be heard. They want to be understood. The same exact can be said for these prospects. You don't tell them, hey, I'm going to fix all your problems. Number one, that's why they should be paying you to fix your problems, right? So what do? You ask discovery questions. And if anybody has a significant other and you're not doing this, I'm going to save your relationship. probably make you a great week. Discovery questions are key because whether you care or not means nothing. It's about making them feel understood. So by being selfless, you can be selfish. And if you want to be selfish, you have to be selfless and you have to make it about them. So whether some people take the approach of it's all about me in business. Some people take the approach of I have to serve everyone. Either way, in order for you to last a long time, right? You have to be a little selfish. You have to be a little selfless and you have to find a nice balance. And that's where you can inject who you are and your personality. So those discovery questions, right? Where are you? Discovery questions. Where do you want to be? Now, here's the cool part with these discovery questions. Where do you want to be? It's not so much, what's the exact profitability you want to be at? What's the exact revenue? Yes, we want to know those questions, but we want to also know the why. So where are you? Right? Why are you there? That's assigning responsibility. Where do you want to be? Why? This is where we elicit the emotional connection. For example, if someone tells me I want to make 50K a month, cool. Why? Did you just throw this number out of nowhere? Is this because there's a certain thing you're trying to achieve? Is this because you know that you can pay yourself out of 50K a certain amount of money that achieves financial freedom? Like, okay, cool. It is about the financial freedom. Okay, what would 50K a month do for you? Like, how would your lifestyle change? How would this change? And what you're doing is you're eliciting the emotional response because you're making them not only feel understood about where they are, but about where they want to be. And so what happens, right? This is definitely not my quote, but people will use logic to validate their emotion. And I'll give you an example. If you've ever eaten, like you ever woke, we've all probably done this. If you wake up at midnight, I've got dogs, we have a baby. Most people here are family people or have responsibilities, right? You wake up at midnight for whatever reason and you go in the kitchen and grab a piece of cake. You probably validated in your head, oh yeah, like I didn't eat that much. And like you logically justified that decision, right? Anything you do that you know you probably shouldn't do, you will logically justify this. I'll work it off tomorrow. I didn't eat that much today. I'll make sure I'm good for the rest of the week, right? Spending money. Let me indulge a little bit. I've been good. I'm white, right? Whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. You're logically validating that emotion. So with the close, and we'll cover it more in depth in a little bit. The gist is make them feel understood. Yeah, right. I did it last night. I actually stopped myself. So I was like, let me not do it. Because I was like, got some Rocky Road ice cream. I was like, let me not do it. So today you best believe I'm going to justify eating it because I didn't last night. But that's the whole idea, right? Make them feel understood. Why are they there? So they can assign responsibility. Where do they want to be? Why? So we can elicit the emotional connection. And then we bridge the gap. Now, in the modified close through DMs, what does that look like? Where are you? Discovery. Where do you want to be? Discovery. Emotional discovery. When do you want to start? Is this a now thing or a 3-month thing? Why does that matter? If they want to start now, then they are coming to you because they're like, hey, I'm coming to you. Basically, I want to make sure that you're qualified enough for me to give you my information for payment. If they're shopping, most of the time, what are they shopping for? Lowest price, best deal, right? And I'm going to show you how to overcome those objections. Lowest price, best deal. That's essentially what they're shopping for. It's also a waste of your time. We're trying to close people who are ready now. You can follow up with them in 3 months. And I've said this before. My favorite way to follow up is, hey, it's been X amount of days, X amount of weeks, X amount of months since we last spoke. Looking over your digital presence, not much has changed. That's basically what you're trying to say. Not much has changed. So what you're saying is, if you had worked with me this many days ago, this insert amount of time ago, where do you think you'd be? Number one. Number two, let's say, hey, they're like, hey, I'm crushing my goals. I'm super happy for you. Like, and then you can challenge them. Hey, is there anybody else that you think that maybe I could be a good fit for? If they're already happy, then cool. They're in a good mood. Maybe they'd push you onto someone else. Worst case, they tell you no, screw off. And okay, cool. You're at the same spot you were with them to begin with. But sometimes I follow up. I have a pretty big client. I'm not going to describe details in case he or she may be watching, but I basically followed up with them and I was like, hey, I'm noticing not much is changing. Like, did you get a massive influx of customers? Like, no, why? Okay, well, I'm just wondering, like, usually when people don't want to change things, it's because things are getting better or doing as well as they wanted to do. No, I'm still stuck. Cool. And I segue that into a close. So that's basically the gist of the modified close. Super to the point. Usually the modified close is going to take place over DMs. You can expand upon it if it's in person, but the whole goal, right? You're out to eat. You have a friend. Oh, I didn't know you do this. Oh yeah. Like, what do you do? Well, here, I can show you what I do. Where are you currently at? Why are you there? Where do you want to be? Why do you want to be there? Cool. Here's how I bridge that gap. And you can do an in-person. I was talking to a student the other day. You can do an in-person marketing audit. So you can basically pull up have your phone, you pull up their website, you pull up their GMB and you go, this is good. This is good. The same stuff we talk about in the marketing audit, right? This is good. This is good. This is good. And we just say, this is good. This is good. This is good. This is good. And then we go, this is bad, negative output, negative outcome. This is bad, negative outcome. This is bad, negative outcome. This is bad, negative outcome, right? So for example, GMB is not optimized, which means you're probably not getting as many eyes on your business, which means you're losing money every single day. It's not optimized. Here's how it's not optimized. Services aren't listed as products. You don't have the website connected. I talked to a client the other day. When you click on the website button, it went to his Instagram. I was like, I said, no, we don't do that. There's no chat feature. Chat can be integrated into the software, right? The high level software. And you basically tell them this is costing you money directly. You're not getting leads. indirectly, you're wasting a lot of time. You're probably putting in so much more sweat equity. And because you have so few leads, what do? If you don't have leads, what do? They drop their prices to get leads. They drop their prices to close leads. So they're costing themselves money directly or indirectly. Remember, B2B, it's always money. It's always money motivated. So the full close, the absolute full close, again, the modified is super simple. It's the 5 questions on the question form. The full close. Number one, you hop in the call, whether it's cold or warm, you start with a 2 to 3 minute opener. 2 to 3 minute opener. And I don't want to go too in depth on this. I'll do a nice little overview and then you can see the full in depth. I'm working on this will actually be the first training where you have access to the doc, where you can actually make a copy of the doc and you can include your own objection handling. But right now, the full 10-step process is about 9 pages. And then I already have 7 pages of objection handling on that doc for you guys to use and copy. And then I'm working on adding more. So you will see it's a dynamic doc, which means you'll see that document getting longer and longer, which means I'm going to be adding more and more objection handling that you can hop in the training and just copy the document. And then you're going to add your own objection handling specific to your niche, right? But essentially, right, the open, 2 to 3 minutes on the open, you're just either rekindling a connection or you're slightly establishing a connection. Now, I want to say something that might be not controversial, but might be an eye opener to a few of you. You don't build rapport through small talk. You don't. You build rapport in 2 ways, a connection and establishing authority. That's the way you build rapport in business. They have to know who you are enough to be like, let me hear him out. Let me hear her out. And then you have to validate that you know what you're talking about. You have to, and again, think back to step 3 training, status delta content. That is going to already do that for you. So that way your rapport portion, the opener, can be a little bit quicker. In the opener, this is my favorite way to do it. I essentially say, hey, where are you calling from? I look at their social media before I hop on the page and I try to find a connection. It can be the most obscure connection ever. You have a dog, I have a dog. You've been to this location, I've been to that location. You like sports, I like sports. It can be the most obscure connection ever. Whatever you ask them, I want you to answer for yourself. This is basic for anyone who watches any criminal CSI police shows. Basic hostage negotiation tells you that the more you talk about yourself, the harder it is for someone to hurt. So I don't know if you guys have heard this or not, but essentially, if you're getting like robbed or someone's attacking you, if you just start saying, this is my name, I'm this old, I do this for a living, I have this many kids, I'm married. Last year I went on vacation to this location, to this spot, right? It actually becomes harder for them to objectify you as a non-human, right? So they have to actually acknowledge you're a person. So when you're asking these questions in the opener, the immediate way to elicit a connection is whether they ask you or not, you answer it. So for example, if I'm like, hey, Tim, where'd you go? Did you go on vacation last year? Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. It's really good to go on vacation. I actually went to Florida for the first time and we actually just moved out. He didn't ask me the question back. He just nodded his head. I'm eliciting a connection. So now he can get off the call and be like, oh yeah, he went to Florida. Does he care? No, but emotionally, subconsciously, it elicits a connection. This is not from me. This is from hostage negotiators. So if we're looking at this as a negotiation and you're talking about hostage, you're talking about hostile versus hostile, right? The whole goal is to look at the problems together. That's the cool part about what I'm going to show you with objection handling. The whole goal is look at the problem together. So first we have to diffuse the bomb, the anger. I'm not saying there is anger, but we want to diffuse any potential anger by eliciting that connection. Now, remember, we keep them on their toes, just like in a date. Now, before I move into the questions, I want to share with you guys this really cool study. And I think I've mentioned this before, but I'm going to cover it really quickly again. They did a study where they basically tested, it was a man going on a date with a woman, and the man acted in one of 3 ways in the first half of the date, and one of 3 ways, the same exact 3 ways, on the second half of the date. And they wanted to see what would elicit a stronger connection with the date. Okay. So this is a really interesting study. He comes in and he either acts, or is one of 2 ways. I'm sorry. He either acts nice and stays nice, mean and stays mean, or he starts nice, ends mean, starts mean, ends nice. Okay. So either nice or mean, and he ends either nice or mean. Here's what they found. They found that if he started mean, cold, indifferent, and ended nice, it was like 8 or 9, 10 times out of 10, the girl wanted to go on a date with him again. And they studied this. They're like, why if he starts mean and ends nice, like why not nice all the way through? Right. And the study found that subconsciously the female understood that, oh, he's usually not a nice person, but the effect I have on this person actually makes him a nicer person. Therefore, I feel like anyone's heard like, oh, I can fix him, that kind of thing, right? Essentially, it was I have a positive effect on him. Who doesn't want to feel special? Like, oh, he doesn't like anybody but me. Like that dude, oh, he's so mean to everyone. Yeah, but he's a good buddy of mine. Like that makes someone feel special. And so they actually studied this. So another thing you could do, and I'm not suggesting it, maybe test it, right? Is instead of coming off mean, you can come off really technical and then inject personality as they start warming you up, or vice versa. That's another reason why I love that status delta content. I know it's kind of intimidating to me, but on the status delta content, you're not injecting personality at all, right? We do that on the problem agitating content, but not status delta. So if they see that you're really technical and really smart and really, really educated in this field, really well versed and experienced, they hop on a call and you kind of start off that way and you melt into them. They start thinking, oh, wow, like I have a cool effect. I'm like, we're buddies. Like I warmed them up. Right. So it's another thing to consider when you're building your rapport. The rapport is all about solidifying that connection. Best way to do it is that emotional connection when you're starting out. So consider, there's a few different ways. For me, I know sometimes if I'm having a bad day, I kind of get on the call a little cold. And if I warm up really quickly, it's not the end of the world because I'm referencing that study. It still subconsciously tells them, great. But if you're happy and you end mean, that's the last, I think it was like 0 out of 10 wanted to go back on the date. So on these calls, it's fine if you start off a little rocky, but you cannot end on a bad note. It's fine if you start on a bad note, but you can't end on a bad note. And like John said, and like we're about to cover, silence is your best friend. So full call frame, we open, then we set the agenda. Here's what it looks like. All right, cool. We ask the questions before. Hey, I know you're busy. I'm busy. Here's how these calls usually go. I'm going to ask you a few questions. It may get a little tedious. It may get a little meticulous. Whatever you want to share, great. Whatever you don't want to share, not a problem. The more I know, obviously, the better I can prescribe a solution. Then I'm going to pivot. Basically, after I ask the questions, that will tell me if I'm able to help you. Then we're going to pivot. I'll share with you how we bridge the gap. And if that sounds like something you're interested in, we can move forward. Only thing I'm going to ask of you during this entire call is that by the end of the call, I just get a yes or a no. That's it. Again, this is human psychology. It actually shows that if you ask somebody a favor, they're more friendly to you than if you actually offer to do a favor for them. This is not me making up. This is human psychology. So by asking them a favor versus you saying, hey, I can do anything you want me to do. What's up? By you saying, hey, I'm going to ask you a favor. By the end of the call, I just need a yes or no. Either way, it doesn't matter. I just need a yes or no. So that way I know what's going on. Then we move into part 3 or step 3. And you're going to see all this in the training. Why are they on the call? So you may have already established this in the modified close, like, hey, where are you? Why'd you reach out? Or they may say, hey, I'm reaching out to you. I get this all the time. Hey, I'm reaching out to you because I saw XYZ. I'm stuck with here. So if they've already told you, this is why I'm reaching out, you can move past that, or you can even reiterate it. I understand you're on the call because of XYZ. Is that still the case? Cool. Just confirming before we move on. And then look at that, done in 30 seconds. If it's a very cold call, like if you have the funnel structured the way that I recommend VSL over a book call form, if they book and you never met with them before, you can say, hey, why'd you hop in the call? Well, I saw your content. I have this problem. It resonated with me. I want to see if this is something that we can solve. Great. Move on. It should be a very quick, very, very quick section. Essentially, why'd you jump on the call? Whatever they reply, light discovery. Tell me more about that. How long has that been going on? Have you tried anything to solve it? Right? Cool. And then we transition. I'm getting the picture. Let's pivot. And I want to get a full understanding, not of why you jumped the call, but the full understanding of where you currently are. Remember, and that's the first question we asked in the modified close. Where are you currently? What is point A? And then we identify point B and we bridge the gap. So point A, and very quickly, any questions, comments, concerns, clarity, raise your hand, interrupt me. This is for you guys. So point A, right? Where are you? Super, super easy. Same in the modified close. So I won't cover it too much. Walk me through your business, offers, price points, revenue, profitability, team size, years in business, ideal clients. How do you find your clients? How do they find you? Any new specific questions, right? Route density. Are you on retainer for anyone? Do you have your face on park benches? Like, right? Any specific questions. And then we go into examining their pain. So essentially, we want to connect their current situation with the emotional circumstance of being stuck. So this is the why. This is the why haven't you moved forward? Why? What have you tried in the past? Um, and I like to keep these very not necessarily monetary, not necessarily the monetary side, but definitely the business side. So when you're talking about where they currently are, they may say, "I'm here, I'm stuck here, whatever." Then we get into the business side. So essentially, what we're doing here is we're examining their pain, but we're also going to expand their pain. Here's what I mean by that. If I say to you, "Hey, do you go to the gym?" The answer is going to be, "Yes, I go. No, I don't go." Right. But if I say to you, "Hey, what are you doing to make sure that you keep good range of motion as you get older? What are you doing to make sure that you are protecting your lower back as you move forward?" What am I doing there? I'm implying that you're doing something, or at least you should be. What are you doing? And most of the time, based off of just the first discovery section, they're going to say something like, well, or they're gonna think, I'm not doing anything." Right? Like if you go to the dentist and they say, "Hey, what are you doing to what are you using to floss? Are you using string, like the floss itself, or are you using a water pick?" Imagine you're like, "I don't floss at all." They're gonna be like, "Ugh." And just not even having a reply, not even having answered yet, you already know, "Ugh, that tells me I should have been doing this, and now I either have to lie or be honest and risk embarrassment," right? That's the point with these questions. Now, we don't want to be too mean, but we basically want to say like, "Hey," we're not saying, you know, what do you we're saying, yes, what do you do to find clients? But hey, do you have a process put in place? Like, what does the process look like? I don't have a process. Ugh. What does it look like to onboard a new client? I don't know. I just do this or that. Ugh. That's the whole point. We want to exacerbate those pain points. We want to expand them. We also want to hold a mirror up to them like, hey, that's not too good. Like these things probably shouldn't be the way they are, right? That's step one. Hey, you got a pain point um, that you may not know about. And I'm not fat shaming, but if anyone's seen like the 600-pound life shows and they're like, "What do you drink?" And they're like, "Well, I drink diet soda because I think it's healthier than regular soda." And they're like, "You probably shouldn't be drinking any soda." So like, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't know that." It's kind of where you can come in and educate, like, "Hey, you're doing this all wrong." But again, we're not being too soft. We're not being too hard. So don't be like, "What the heck? Like, you should have had it." No. We also want to be like, "Oh, that's okay." No. If you have someone you care about and they're chain smoking cigarettes, you're going to be like, "Hey, that's not good. Like, knock it off." Right. You're not going to be like, "I'll kill you if you don't stop." That's way too harsh. And you're not going to be like, you can smoke if you, no, like if you really care about them, you're saying, "Hey, there's a prescription to solve this. Let me help you through it." Right. If you really care about them. So for anyone, I have had some people, I don't think it's anyone on this call, but I've had some people who are like, "Isn't that a little direct?" It is. They have a pain point they have to solve. Like, think about this. If their business is not doing well and that's the main source of their income, do you think do you think that's helping or hurting their marriage? Do you think that's helping or hurting their mental health when they go to bed? You see what I'm saying? I'm not saying exploit that, not at all. But that is why you have to be direct because you need to tell them, and sometimes you have to nudge them a little bit. Hey, these are pain points that need to be solved. Like your tooth hurts because there's a cavity. Like, let's fix it before you need a whole root canal. That's the kind of where we want to go at, right? So that's essentially what we're doing. Examine the pain. What do they want? Where do they want to be? This is going to be almost a mirror of where you work, right? If you're saying, "Hey, where are you with revenue? Where do you want to be? Where are you with profitability? Where do you want to be? Where are you with route density? Where do you want to be? Where are you with retaining clients? Where do you want to be?" Essentially, it's just a nice little mirror. The way I like to phrase it is I like to start having them picture working with me. Let's say you and I work together in the next 12 months. What's a realistic goal for these things? Right. And I like to say realistic because some people might be like, "Well, hell, I want to be a millionaire." Okay, cool. Everybody does. Realistically, you're here. Where do you want to be? Right. And the realistic thing also helps with the pricing, which we'll talk about in a second. So that's essentially what it is. You're here. Where do you want to be? Then we start shifting into responsibility because they have a responsibility. Number one, they have to own the responsibility of their business. Number two, they have to have they're responsible for the budget and time commitment that you're about to ask for them. So you need to make sure they have the bandwidth to provide that, right? To provide the financial investment, to provide the time investment. So Do you have a budget for this project? Whatever number they say, you're going to ask them how they come to that. So whether you're saying, where do you want to be? So obviously, where are you? How are you gathering that? That's stupid easy, right? I look at my bank account. It's simple. Where do you want to be? 10,000. Why that number? What's your budget for this project? Not her a month. How are you getting that number? Are you pulling numbers out of your butt? Are you snapping? Are you random number generator? Like, how is this number coming to pass? Because you need them thinking, you need them understanding, hey, I'm going to make a smart decision. Everything needs to be data driven, right? Why are we coming up with this number? And that's also going to come into play when we diminish our own pricing, which I'm going to cover in a little bit. But essentially, those are my two favorite questions that help us move into owning responsibility. What does owning responsibility look like? Basically, it's like this. You're here. You want to be there. What's stopping you? We know the answer. Their limited knowledge, their limiting beliefs, their lack of trying to expand. It's them. They are the reason. And it's, again, we're not being mean. We're not being mean at all. Because when we're assigning responsibility, we have to do that. Now, why do we do that? Well, we do it because they need to understand that if they this is all foreshadow, this is all a precursor. If they keep doing what they've been doing, they're going to keep getting what they're getting. We're not saying that yet, but we're starting to imply these things. We're starting to imply these pain points, right? So, one other thing I want to say about that, when we assign responsibility, let's say, John or Michael, whoever, right, is saying, hey, how come you didn't do ABC? If I'm like, well, traffic was bad and I told Tim to remind me, he didn't remind me, and Josh was supposed to text me and he never texted me, and like, I can't rely on anybody. I'm waving my own red flag, right? Like, do you want to work with someone who they blame everyone but you or themselves? They have to take responsibility. If they're not going to take responsibility, that's a red flag. Another red flag in the beginning, when you basically like lay out how the call is going to go. If they try to interrupt you, which I'll cover in a second, if they try to interrupt you and take charge of the call, that's a red flag. If they just continuously, now we handle a couple objections, but if they're talking to you like, I don't want to know any of that, I want this, and this, that's a nightmare client. This is your business. You're working with them. They get value in exchange for money. Why do I love being a contractor? Because I can fire whoever I want. I can go replace them with 2 or 3 people. And if I'm really desperate, I can bring my prices down to whatever I want. I can offer whatever free trial I want to justify it and cut that kind of nightmare client. I can charge a smile fee. This is my favorite thing. I haven't heard anyone talk. I've heard a few people talk about it. I call it a smile fee. Let's say I hate working with Tony. And I tell Tony, essentially, if I'm going to work with him, it's this price. If I throw out a stupid high number, it's my smile fee, the fee that they have to pay for me to show up with a smile. If he pays it, I'm showing up with a smile. If he doesn't pay it, great. I didn't want to work with him anyway. It's a win-win for me. So that's something you can do with the red flags. It depends on how much patience you have. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So that's just something to keep in mind. But essentially, we want to assign that responsibility. What's holding you back? And usually the goal that we want them to say, we want them to lean it one of 3 ways. They can't do it on their own. They can, but they want to do it faster. They don't have the bandwidth on the team. Or they basically want to follow someone, like John said in the very, very, very beginning of the call before we started recording. They want to follow somebody who's done it before. I want to do what you do, ergo I'm following you. So usually that's one of 3 ways that we want it to go with the responsibility, right? I don't know how to do it. I can't do it. I can do it, but not very quickly. I'm new at it. I need more help, right? Usually that's you're done with, you clients. I can't do it, or I have no idea how to do it. That's usually you're done for, you clients. And then I want to follow someone who's done it before. Usually that's your DIY clients, right? If you remember the comprehensive marketing approach we talked about in the vertical SWAS offer. So you see how those questions pivot into the offer. It all intertwines, which is the cool part about this process, about the program. So usually once we assign responsibility, you kind of get a feel for, is this somebody I can work with? They don't have to be your best friend. You don't have to like them, but can I work with this individual? Now, we do want to acknowledge the gap. So once we've understood where they are, where they want to be, we start acknowledging the gap. This is where we start pivoting into the close. Now, how do we acknowledge the gap? The gap itself is usually a technical aspect. We're not going to the price. The price is the last thing we cover. It's usually a technical aspect, right? You're at point A, you can do a quick recap, show them you understand. You want to get to point B, again, recap within this time frame, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, right? Here's my exact process that my team uses that's going to help you achieve these results. This is where you can do a few things. If it's a structured meeting, you can have a pitch deck. And I'm going to be creating pitch deck templates for you guys down the road that you can actually just copy and make it your own. But you can have a pitch deck, a presentation. You're going to, so that's like more formal side. What I like to do is I like to go into high level where you have unlimited accounts. I actually make a dummy test account. And in the dummy test account, they have standard automations. They have standard websites. You don't have to tailor to anyone. You can just say, hey, this is a dummy account. And you basically apply all the automations. There's tons of automation templates. You apply a random website. I apply a mobile website. So the mobile website is not the mobile view. It's like a link tree. If you go to the funnel template or website templates, type in mobile, you'll see what looks very similar to link tree. So you can make a fake account and it could be like your logo here. That's perfect because you want them to envision it. You don't have to go and tailor it all to them before the call. I know some people say, make the website and then show it to them. That is such a colossal waste of time. Do not do that. You can just say, hey, here's what it looks like. Here's how we can tailor it. Here's how easy it is. If it's a done with you client, here's how you change it. Super easy. I'll show you how to do it. I've got a bunch of trainings. If it's a done for you, we tailor it completely to what you want. This is what the back end looks like. You don't care, but I want to show you all the tools just really quickly. Now, here's the thing where a lot of people mess up. When you cover what you do, when you acknowledge the technical gap. So for example, that's a marketing audit. You need the SEO, the Google business is messed up. Here's how we fix it. This is tools we use. It's fine, by the way, to share your tools. If to me, a guy comes to my house to work on my home and I don't see like DeWalt or some kind of branded tools, I'm like, hold on. Is that going to blow up in your hand? Like can you imagine if your handyman brought homemade tools? It'd be a little concerning, right? You want them to use the best of the best. So high level is one of the best of the best. Surfer SEO, one of the best of the best, right? Descript, one of the best of the best. Like you can share with them. There's nothing wrong with sharing the tools because number one, they can go on Google and find these tools and do it themselves. They're not doing that. They're coming to you. Can I go buy a hammer and a saw and all the tools I need to build a home? Yes. If I built a home, would any of you step foot in it? No, it would look crazy. You would not want to go in there. It'd be a death trap. So there's nothing wrong with having those tools. But when we acknowledge the gap, here's what I want you to do. I want you to keep your presentation down to about 5 minutes. Let me, honest to God, can you cover all the features in high level alone in 5 minutes? No, you can't. Why? Yeah, John, what's up?
So I'm sorry, I may have missed it because the kids were being a little rowdy.
We're good.
Was that just for the 5 minutes just for the explanation of or overview of GHL, or was that for the Loom video as a whole? The digital audit.
The Loom is different because you're doing a few additional things, and I'm having this. So this weekend, you're going to see the closing training come out, and you're going to see my recommendation of a Loom marketing audit. Whatever I tell you, I was telling Grant this earlier today. Whatever I give you, that should be step one, like your starting point. Test everything. Split test everything. Whatever I give you, start there. Make it your own. Apply it to your industry. Test it. Say, hey, this guy, it's a good starting point, but I want to try this. Inject Dan Kennedy, phenomenal marketer. I'm sure most of you know him from Magnetic Marketing. He talks about injecting your personality. It's the exact reason why we use a hybrid approach. So inject your personality. So on the 5 minute cover, this is just the formal full close. It's not the modified close. What you're doing, John, we've been talking back and forth. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing fine. But for the most part, when it's face-to-face, when it's a phone call, 5 minutes. We know we can't cover the features in 5 minutes. Why do I say that? Some people do not care. Some people have questions. If someone has a question, they're going to focus more on that question than you doing any speaking. If you raise your hand to ask me a question, I guarantee you're not going to hear a word I say until I come off mute or I say, hey, what are you saying? You're not, that's why when you raise your questions, I try to get them really quickly because you're not going to hear what I'm saying between now and then. That's normal. That's normal human behavior. I'm not going to fault you for that. So we cover a 5-minute presentation to basically say, your Google business needs to be optimized. How do we do that? We do this. Services listed as products. We need everything up to date. We need your NAP, right? Name, address, phone number. You don't have a physical location. I can get you a digital business location in your city. So we'll do all of that. Next, we need to do, and you're going like that. And you can have a slide deck, or you show the back end of yours, or you can build their digital presence and do a marketing audit right in front of them. One of the three, all three, doesn't matter. You can say, here's what it looks like, applied, how we'd apply it to you. 5 to 10 minutes. When they have a question, let them interrupt. If they really care, if they really want to know what's going on, they will ask the questions because they're about to close a deal with you. So if they're like, well, how do you do this technical component? Cool. Now I'll go into that because that's what you actually care about. If they're just like, I trust you, everything makes sense. This happens to me all the time. I've seen all your content. They don't want to go into that. So you can get off the call much faster and you don't bore them to death and you talk less because you're like, cool, this is what we do. And we move on. Yeah, Tim, what's up?
Okay. So, I think I know the answer to this question already, so I'm just going to say it out loud. So, when you're doing the presentation, you already know what their needs are. They already have a WooCommerce website that is killing it, but they don't have other stuff. So you're going to tailor your presentation as fast as you can, omitting things that don't really apply, right?
Yes. So you can, yeah. So essentially, let's say you have a stock pitch deck. Let's say it's 40 slides. As you're going through, and this refers back to the golden triangle ascension offer, right? If they are bottom tier, you probably want to lightly touch every slide. If they're top tier, you can be like, nope, you've already done that. Great work. You've already done that. Beautiful. I have a client, he has a beautiful website. His marketing is terrible. So when I pull up my pitch deck, I'm going to go, your website's optimized. It's in WordPress. Only thing I want to mention on here is that we can actually host that for you. That's the only thing I want to mention on that. I wouldn't touch the website. It's beautiful. It's not localized. So let's maybe add this or that, but I don't want to spend too much time on there. Here's where I want to focus most of it because this is where we're going to see low hanging fruit we can attack and monetize quickly. Then we pick and blah, 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 blah. So yes, you have the same pitch deck. Don't modify the deck itself, but modify how you're presenting. We don't need that. Yeah, go ahead.
So as a follow up, when you say pitch deck, so the 5-minute close
Mhm.
is it appropriate to have a pitch deck or not a pitch deck um, or you just play that by ear?
So that's your call. I would
Okay.
say so my preference and my experience, usually what happens is the lower ticket, the less formal the pitch deck needs to be. So it's actually like a bell curve. So like a U shape, right? And I'm sure you know, but just to make sure that's a shape, not the N, the U, right? So with the bell curve, right? Um, it's like the newer they are. No, I'm sorry, it is an N, not the U. I'm sorry. Trying to draw it's like this, okay? So it starts low, goes high, comes low. The newer they are, the less you cover. Usually it's your middle range people who have 1,000 questions because you're starting to go into the mid high ticket and it's costing more of their money. And they're usually not at the level that they're super comfortable just swiping the card. So low ticket, $97, 197, 297. Actually, I'd say 97, 197. Once you start getting the 2, 3, 4, 5, once you get to that 300 to 1,500 range, that's where you see people start going, and that's where you have to go more in depth in your presentation. Once you start getting to the end of the bell curve, once you start talking to, I just closed a 7K client last Friday. He didn't want to see any of that because once they get to that point where money is money and they know I pay this, he make that, I have guarantees, so I'm safe. They don't even want you to go into that. Now that's my experience. Low and high ticket, they don't care. Mid ticket is where they will want to understand where every penny is going. Cause again, that's usually where they're if they're mid-ticket price levels, they're usually not used to spending that much money. And you might be one of their first bigger purchases or bigger commitments that they don't have a direct hand in the kitchen, if that makes sense. Does that kind of answer your question?
Affirmative.
Okay. If not, let me know. Cause remember, this is for you guys. So like, if you feel like you have to ask a question, I know you don't, but if you feel like you have to ask the question 1,000 different ways to fully grasp it, I want you to, because I know you said you understood it. It may be, I'm picking on Josh. It may be Josh is like I don't understand it and I don't want to speak up. So if you have those thoughts, you have those questions, you have those concerns, do not hesitate. This is why you guys are here. This is why I am here. And so moving on a little bit, and again, raise your hand if you have any questions. Moving on a little bit, keep your presentation 5 to 10-ish minutes long. I would keep it as short as possible. Hit what you want to hit, acknowledge how you're going to bridge the gap. But the whole point is, if they're cool with it, move on. If they have questions, let them ask, answer those questions, because you don't want the objection to be, I don't think you can do this. That, like, if they say, I don't think you can do this, like you can't do the technical stuff, then you acknowledge the gap was like, that was absolutely poorly done. So once we go there, then we basically say, once we show it, okay, here's kind of how we do it, how we get you that process. Then we start pivoting again into the close. And that would be sharing the bird's eye view of your process. So essentially, we kind of take a granular approach. And then we're kind of zooming out. So, hey, here's the little steps we take, but big picture, just like when you write a paper in high school, if any of you remember, you go into the details and then your conclusion. The conclusion is usually the thesis restated. Usually what you see when you're writing a paper is an hourglass figure. You start broad, get specific, and then you go back broad, reiterating your points. So at the end, the process, what's the big process? Hey, we did all these steps, but again, this is what we focus on. And we're going to reiterate the offer that we put together in the step 1 training. So for example, I do this, SEO, we do this, we do this, we do this. But again, all of these processes, all of these tools, all of these actions that we take are all designed to take you from 5 to 50K a month with your HVAC business. They're all designed to get you from, skinny to 20 pounds of muscle mass in the next 6 months without doing XYZ. It's all designed to help you achieve your goal, perceive risk, value proposition without doing, with risk reversal, right? It's the exact formula we have in the presentation. Very similar to the formula that Alex Hormozy does in his $100 million training. Phenomenal training. I'm not even going to try to reiterate it because he just did such a good job doing that. So any questions on covering it? Because the issue that I've seen is that people will be like, I have all these features I want to tell you about. And I think the more you know, you'll be sold on it because I was sold on it. No, you were looking for a cool software. They're looking for a solution to their problem. Any questions on where we're at so far? No? Okay. So moving on. So we share the bird's eye view. So that's kind of where we're starting to move out, right? Again, this is what we do. We typically work with this type of people. I help them achieve XYZ. Brief explanation. If they have questions, they'll ask. If not, you save everyone's time, right? Because you're not sharing a whole presentation. You're not going into all this, in-depth stuff. You move forward, right? Then we go into state your offer and close. So here's what it looks like. This is me talking to the client, right? Or prospect. Basically, once we onboard you, we start with this, right? Organic, paid organic, then paid. We're trying to get you as many leads for free. That way we can reinvest profits, blah, blah, blah. Again, the focus is making cost-effective decisions, scale your business without spending or losing unnecessary money, right? And then we can grow from a very safe place. And then you stop. So essentially what you're doing is you are just finishing your presentation and you stop talking. You're not going to go into the payments. They know that's what's next. You're not going to go into the presentation. So you have a presentation. This is what we do. This is how we do it. I do this all the time. Once we onboard you, and just act like payment has already been done. Once we onboard you, this is what the process looks like. Once we onboard you, we start here, we go through here, everything we cover in the presentation. Done. Stop. Sip your water, sip your coffee, stop. Essentially, what you're going to do from there is you just wait for them to reply. Does anybody know why when we're doing the presentation, we don't go into payments? Someone raise their hand.
Because somebody may be ready to go and they may be ready to say, let's start. Full price.
Okay. Yeah, that's best case.
Objections.
Objections. So what are some objections that you guys have seen before?
Cost too much money. I don't know your track record. I'm not sure I'm ready to commit to something like this.
Yeah. Love it.
I think I can do it on my own.
Okay, love it. I have all these. Love it. Keep going. What else? Anything else?
I've done other stuff and it's failed before.
Perfect. I'm going to work backwards because I don't have what Tim has, and I'm going to put that in there. I've done other stuff and it hasn't worked before. Great. So essentially, here's what you're going to do. And it starts off a little cheesy, just like most of these do. And then it wraps up with a serious point. This, I've tried it before. It hasn't worked. Number one, well, I'm going to talk to you guys behind the scenes and then we kind of look at the talk offs. Number one, how many people here have tried something, it's failed, you tried it again and it worked? If I tried, imagine if I went to, right, here's an example, and I'll get you, John, real quick. If I went and got a steak and the steak was awful, would I write off steak? No, I'm a carnivore before anything, right? So one person makes me a bad steak doesn't mean every steak is bad. I've seen some people use it with dating. Are you married today? Yes. Did you have a girlfriend before your wife? Yes. Why do you keep dating if she broke your heart? So there's several ways that you can address that. And then John, did you have a question? Looks like I have two Johns in the chat. I won. But essentially, give me 1 second.
No, I didn't have a question. I thought you were like asking for.
Oh no, yeah. So
My
essentially,
bad.
that's essentially what I do, right? If you like, here's one that angers my wife beyond words. When you get a flat Coke and the soda's flat, and she's like, no carbonation, no syrup. If it's mixed wrong, right? That always like upsets her. Same thing. Are you writing off soda? No, she's probably gonna get a soda the next place, hoping it goes better, right? So having one bad situation doesn't mean that every situation is bad, but we still, again, what we're doing with this objection handling is we want to look at the problem together. So we're not saying that's stupid. We're going to use questions. So I'm not face to face with you. Now I'm side by side with you. Well, let's look at the problem. So you're saying you've been burned before. In the past, when you've been burned before, did you write it off completely? Like, have you ever had somebody bring out a bad meal? Like I love, it's called raspberry pie. If someone makes bad raspberry pie, am I going to write it off? Or if I got one bad batch? No, it was a bad batch. I'll go find another one, right? So you're asking them questions. This is how you look at the problem together. You don't make statements, you ask questions. Now the questions are borderline rhetorical, not rhetorical, borderline, because you want them to answer. Hey, when this happened in the past, did it work out for you? Hey, in the past, when this failed, did you just write it off? Okay, tell me about that. Oh, okay. And you can use, they brought you out a bad steak. Why do you still eat steak? You're married, but you dated people before your wife. Why'd you keep dating? You're married, but you dated people before your husband. Why'd you keep dating? Right. So, whatever it is, right? I go to the gym. For anyone, if you know you're probably someone who goes to the gym, big one is when you're lifting a weight, you probably failed before. That usually tells you right where you're at. So you know where to attack the next time you come in. So all the questions you've asked in the past, all the rapport you built in the past, that's where you start using those scenarios in your analogies, right? That's why building rapport is useful, because there's really no other way to say it. You're going to weaponize their previous answers and information against them. Why do we do this and sleep well at night? Because we're trying to push them in making a decision that we know is going to help their business. That's also why we have risk reversals. So if I'm really bad at what I do for whatever reason, cool, you only pay for the first month, and then I have to work with you until we achieve those results. Or cool, it's free for 30 days. So, hey, if I have a bad month, fire me on day 29, you don't pay a penny, right? So you have those risk reversals in there, but we still want to address the main root cause of what Tim suggested, right? And then John had some other objections. So here's one. I need to talk to my spouse or my partner. Number one, we want to try to get the decision makers on the phone, but if they want to talk to their spouse or their partner, okay, based off the rapport, based off of like what you've told me, right? So this is where you're trying to go with it. This is where we try to take those replies. So you're telling me, again, this is where your business currently is. I'm assuming maybe your spouse knows that already, or I know your partner knows that already, right? If you're the breadwinner of your family and you're bringing in 1 month 3,000, 1 month 10,000, 1 month 11,000, 1 month 0, right? I'm sure your spouse knows about that, right? Great. So if your spouse knows about that and your spouse knows that you're dissatisfied with the business, with the performance, she's most likely dissatisfied because you're stressed and you're lacking in the marriage, because how can you keep that separate? That's your income, right? So do you think that she would want this solved for you as well? Does she also know these pain points as well? Maybe not to the degree, because as a partner, you try to shield your spouse, but do they not also know these pain points? The answer 9 out of 10 times is yes. And let's say, no, they don't know these pain points. Cool. You want to fix them before they know it? Like they found out the hard way that you got to file for bankruptcy? But most of the time it's, yeah, they know about it. Cool. So why would you think they'd be opposed to you solving this problem? It's one of two things, right? It's usually the product, you, or the money. So if it's the product, okay, cool. And they may be talking directly through an indirect person. So they may be like, well, Billy, but it's really me. Like, I mean, I'll back up a little bit. It's the joke where it's like, let's say hypothetically I have a friend and the friend wants to do this. How would he do that? We don't know who's talking to who, but they may do that with their spouse or with their partner because they may not want to confront head on. Well, my wife would say, my partner would say this or that. And you go, okay, cool. Well, does your partner know that you're dealing with these problems? What do you think your partner would say about the product? Do you think your partner would be more comfortable with this service versus that service? How much do you think they're apart? And it's looking at the problem together. You're turning side to side and you're saying, here's a problem. Let me ask questions. And all you're doing is discovery. So that's why I have a lot of the objection handling in that document that you're going to get over the weekend. But that's where, as you're doing it specific to your niche, you've got to type up your own question that they ask. So if you fail to answer them, cool. I'm not going to fail again the next time. And if you don't have the reply already there, because it's hard to predict human behavior, you remind yourself, let's look at the problem together. And all you do is, okay, cool. Walk me through. Has that happened in the past before? That's usually my favorite go-to while I stall and figure out how I want to answer it. How has that worked in the past before? How's that worked in the past before? Why do you think that happened in the past? And then while they're doing that, you're basically figuring out and finding the root cause of the problem, right? If it's the product, okay, cool. What do you think would make them happy? What do you think they'd be on board with? If it's the money, what about the money? The down payment, the monthly payment, the overall price? Like, what about the money? And then I talk a lot about this in the other trainings. We don't drop price, but you can trade. If they say, this is my budget, cool, I can work within that budget, but here's where I've got to sacrifice because you're not getting everything we talked about for that price point. It's 600 a month. I can do 300. Cool. 10 things, pick 5. I get rid of the other 5. You cut half, I cut half, and we'll work within your budget. Well, I want all 10 and I want the full 600. Right. So you can say, but I'm trying to work with you and I'm sure you want to work with me. So we've got to look at this together and say, hey, I give some, you give some. I take some, you take some. So that's basically what it boils down to, right? It's too expensive. I know. I agree. It is a lot of money, but I'm pretty sure you knew that beforehand when you got in this call because you've been seeing my content and you probably know that what you pay is a fraction of what I give back to you because otherwise you wouldn't be consuming my content. You wouldn't be on the call with me. So usually it's when it comes to price, it's a value thing. And I know people talk about this all the time. Price over value, price over value. Here's is essentially how that works. When people say, I want to see the value, it's usually because A, they don't think you can do it, or B, they think it's overpriced. So I'm going to ask you guys and see how you guys feel. If the question is, they don't think you can do it, what tells them that you can actually do this? And it can be whoever wants to, but I want to see how you guys are feeling about this or how you guys usually handle this. Or the report.
Maybe studies and the value you put out on content.
Status delta content is going to diminish that question so much. Sometimes it comes up. You can let them know, hey, have you seen my have you seen my content? Have you seen my articles? Have you seen my testimonials? If you don't have testimonials or case studies, stick to the status delta content. This is why step 3 comes before step 4. This is why content comes before outreach. This is why content comes before the outreach and the call, because the content is going to validate you so much more. Yeah, John.
Would it be wise to use the numbers and everything that I have currently from what I'm doing now as a case study?
Yes. Anything you've done as a case study. And here's why, because I know what you're going to ask. It's not directly applicable, right? Is that usually?
No, I was actually going to ask, because I mean, it's a service sales based business. So,
Right.
So all it is different targeting, in my opinion, and a little bit of tweaking here and there.
Right.
My question more so was, how can I present it without getting in trouble? You know exactly what I think.
Okay. Yeah. So
That's
if you
something
have the results,
talk about
Yeah, if you have the results, do what I do and I take screenshots of what you guys text me. I crop out the name, I crop out certain information.
Okay. So I think I'm gonna do that. If you don't mind, I'll send it over to you
Yeah.
this weekend.
Yeah. Now, where I thought John was going and where I think most people would take that right is if I have a case study that doesn't directly apply, you can still use those. Why? If I go to the barber, my wife will be the first person to tell you that my head has a funky shape. But if I tell the barber, I want the haircut you just gave that guy, the barber will tailor the haircut based off of my head shape to get me the same result. Same exact thing with a piece of meat, same exact thing with a lawn, same exact thing with anything. The end with the triangle section offer, right? The end goal is still the same for whoever I'm working with. That's the end goal, no matter what. So we have to. It's like poker. Whatever cards you get dealt with in poker, the whole goal is to is to win the pot, right? If you get crap cards or good cards, you still got to know how to play your cards. So the whole goal is with those case studies, it's not going to be identical. It would be very creepy if it was identical. It will never be identical because I'm never going to, let's say I work with Muhammad and I'm like, cool, I work with him. This is the situation. I'm never going to replicate that time in history. I'm never going to have another customer that's Muhammad, identical to him. If I'm working with him again, it's not going to be the same situation because we've already worked together in the past. So the situation is never identical. That's the talk off. Well, this case study doesn't directly apply to me. What part? You don't need organic traffic. You don't need directory listings. You don't need paid traffic. You don't need branding. You don't need an offer that's irresistible. Like you tell me what part doesn't line up with it. The details, of course, the details don't match up. And again, we tie it back to rapport. You have a sports team. Don't they play differently against different sports teams? You have kids. Anybody who has kids, you think two kids are identical? Even twins are different, right? Like everything is different when you look at the details. So the idea is look at the broad picture, look at the broad strokes, and then, excuse me, the details are how we connect the dots. It's how we bridge the gap. So you can use any case study. Let's look at some more objections. It's too expensive. So that was one. And here's another one. This is one I like. This is one of my favorite ones. It is a big investment, and you should congratulate yourself on bringing your business to the point where you can actually make an investment of this size, because not everyone can, and that's why a lot of your competition is below you, on substantially lower than you, because they will never get out of that rut, and they don't even have the money to invest in it. You built this company into an empire, but now you've reached your capability, you've reached your limit to where you need to bring on a bigger team. These are the good problems to have. So yes, this is why it's a big investment, right? So basically you're congratulating them. Don't say it's not a big investment. Don't diminish the price that way. There's ways to diminish it, which I'll cover, but don't diminish the price by saying, no, it's not. I have a Rolex and a Lambo, and what are you talking about? It's a big investment. I spend that much in a week. No, you're not putting them down. It's a big investment. Yes. And this is one of my favorite objection handling ways to approach it. It's not mine. It's from someone else I've seen, but it's like improv. Has anyone seen improv wherever anyone says you have to say yes and, not yes, but you have to say yes and you have to continue the storyline. Same thing with objection handling. It's a lot of money. Yes. And I'm very happy that you have the capability to invest that, because that tells me that you're a hard worker. You've laid the groundwork. You've done the hardest part of any business, which is getting to 5K, 10K a month. You've done all the hard work. Now you're ready to have someone else take you even further, but you've done the part that I can't and no one else can do for you. So you should be really proud of yourself for that. It's always yes and. I need to talk to my spouse about it. Yes. And when you talk to your spouse, are you going to be sharing new information, or is your spouse already aware of all these pain points and problems you're having? When you talk to your partner, I'm hoping your partner probably knows these things, right? Because they're your business partner, right? That makes sense. Maybe it's over budget. Okay. It's more money than you consider. And I would expect that's the same feeling you have when you buy other products, right? Because you got on this call most likely for the same reason you purchased this. You went to the game last week. You went to vacation last week, right? That rapport is big. It's the same as you did all these things because you like quality. And when you pay for something, you probably want to pay for it one time. You probably don't have to pay somebody a little less just to have to go back and pay someone a little more a second time to solve the problem. Am I right? Does that sound like you? Am I off? Am I missing the point, right? That's basically what you're saying. It's a little over budget. Yeah, but you're the type of individual who values quality. Otherwise, you would have popped on Fiverr. And that's still an option. We can end the call right now and you can go to Fiverr. right? If you're really looking for that, that's and that's not me being, rude. If your goal is I want to spend the least amount possible, great. Let's wrap up because that's not me. Go to Fiverr. They can charge way less than what I can charge. Thank me later. I don't have the money. Okay, we do the 30-day trial. Maybe we can arrange a deal with no money down. That's a trial. I understand. Here's another one. I get it, but what about this? You can't afford not to do it based off what you're telling me. So I know it's scary. I know it's a big jump, but can you afford not to cover this $200, $300 a month? And remember, there's a 30-day free trial. So you can't afford zero. Like if you're doing the free trial, you can't afford zero. Like how bad is it going that you can't afford a $0 sign up? That's pretty bad. So again, you're looking at the problem together. Finances can be a challenge, right? I'm always going to do my best. This is a really good one. If you really need to close, I do my best to work with people depending on their range. What is your budget? And then cool. Here's what we can do. I can give you these things. My recommendation is start with these little steps. Once that makes you money, we can reinvest in and we can move up with the actual base package. So if you really need to close, that's something you can say. What is your budget? The only way I can work within your budget is if we get rid of these things and keep these things. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. John's still here. John, what were some of your other ones? I need to think about it or remind me of some of your other ones. He might be busy with the family. Let me see. Think about it is one that I like. So I want to do like a really quick exercise with everyone. Picture an elephant. Does everybody see an elephant? Just like a thumbs up or nod, a head nod or something. Great. So how fast did you think about it? So most of the time when someone says, I need to think about it, no, you don't need to think about it. And now we're not going to say that to them, but no, they don't need to think about it because you just pictured an elephant that quick. You just pictured your favorite vacation spot, your favorite meal, a childhood memory. You can picture that immediately. Thought is instantaneous, right? So here's what you see. Here's what you say, right? Thought is immediate. So usually what happens when people say they need to think about it is it indicates that there's something specific that you have a concern with. Is that the case here? That's usually when people tell me they have to think about it, it's because there's actually an objection that they would rather tell me about over the phone through a text versus face to face. Is that what's going on here? And you empower them. Hey, if you have an objection, that's perfectly fine. You're a smart individual. If you had no objections, I would be concerned. If you had no questions, I would be concerned. So reward them and uplift them for being that type of individual. That's another way you're going to elicit an emotional connection because you're rewarding them for doing something that most people will punish them for. So again, by being selfless, you can be a little selfish. By being a little selfish or to be a little selfish, you have to be selfless. You have to encourage these people, right? So that's one of my favorite ones, right? Is that the case here? If so, cool, let's address it. If not, here's what happened. If they're like, no, there's nothing really that's holding me back. Either A, they're lying, which if you encourage them the right way and if you're talkative and you handle it, it's not going to be the case. B, if they're honest to God telling the truth, no, there's no objection I'm having. Here's what's happening. They're at the top of the cliff and all their friends just jumped in the water and they're really scared to jump in the water. They're on the diving board. They don't want to jump in. They know they need to. There's no reason not to, but it's the emotional aspect of letting go, being free, jumping in, right? So this is where you can push them a little bit and then they're going to thank you for it. Don't lie, don't manipulate, but you can push them a little bit, right? So remember at the beginning of the call, we said the only favor I ask of you is that you make a decision, yes or no. Now, remember, I'm fine either way. I'm not going to push you to make a decision you want to make because I got to make it. I want you to make a decision that's best for you. At the end of the day, I'd rather maintain this relationship because I feel like you're a cool person. I really like talking to you, whatever. But the whole goal is I just need a yes or a no. And you want to make a decision. Yeah, John.
Would it be out of line, depending on obviously how the conversation's going, if they were the one that said, oh, I got to think about it, or, things are going okay right now. I can't justify the extra money. Would it be out of line to say something along the lines of, then why did you take this call? You clearly wanted some advice on something. Or is that
and that's no. So that's actually why I highly recommend the call frame and the call structure, because that's the third part. Why are you on this call? So if you fall, and that's a great question, because I've seen it to where some people will rush to get on the call. They get on the call and they go straight into acknowledging the gap. Here's all the stuff I can do in the feature dump and feature dump and feature dump. And then the objections come up. And then what happens is they end up going through the call reactively versus proactively. So instead of taking responsibility, assessing, can I work with them or not? And then, cool, I can, here's how we acknowledge the gap. What they do is they go straight into the feature dump. And we've all done this before. When you're starting out, we've all done it before. I can do this because you want to share what you're excited about. We've all done it before. It's the feature dump. And then what happens? Oh, well, I'm just shopping around. So what's the price? So we want to acknowledge that very early on the call, because sometimes people will hop in the call and they're like, I just want a price. Okay, well, that depends on this or that. Why? Okay, well, I want to prescribe you a solution that works for you. Do you want me to just throw you a generic solution? If I did that, you wouldn't get what you need out of it. I wouldn't get a positive testimonial. We would both suffer. It'd be a waste of both of our time and money. If they keep trying to push it, well, I'm just shopping for price. Cool. Let's wrap up the call right now. Don't let them bully you. Don't be rude back, but hey, cool. Let's wrap up the call right now. Or you can let them know, this is my range. My range is $300 to $1,200 a month. Is that within your budget? Great. Can we continue the call? Because that's going to tell you exactly where we fall within that budget based off of, number one, your budget. Number two, your goals. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. John said he had a DM like that just the other day. Yeah. So some people, they come in and they bully, and they're going to, and this is something you'll see. You'll see a few pitfalls with business owners that drive me up a wall. Number one, if they're a business owner that's doing somewhat well, their attitude is unchecked and they come off very arrogant, and they think they're everyone's boss. You're not my boss. I'll fire you in a minute. You are not my boss. And I tell them, you can fire me in a minute too. That's the beauty. I have my business. You have your business. I put in my contract. You can do a 14-day notice, termination notice, 30-day termination notice. I can put, hey, if I don't want to work with you, I can fire you right here now. And I'll make sure that we transfer the high level sub account to your high level account. You can make a new one. Use my affiliate code. I don't care. But I'll fire people all the time. People with an attitude like, well, why would I do, like, I don't need you. Cool. Have fun. So number one, they come off unchecked. Number two, a lot of them, and I know this is a pain point for a few of you, especially the younger guys. A lot of these people are like really, they're really unaware, like ignorant to the fact of what they need. Like they're just happy. Like, well, I don't need help doing that. I don't need help with my Google business profile, even though I'm on Facebook scavenging for leads and I go through feast and famine cycles. And they're like, well, I'm not paying $300 for that. Even if I know you're going to make me $3,000 and I'm paying you 10% of that. Yeah. It's infuriating. And what I'll say is it's very, very common with the newer, or, I don't want to say lower tier in terms of like, quality, but like basically the smaller or newer blue collar businesses. They're infamous from it because they're usually hardworking guys. They're usually, they've got a strong backbone. They're hard workers. Like I said, they're usually strong willed. Yeah. And then what ends up happening is they sometimes can come off like not so much a little know-it-all, but they can come off like, I know what I'm doing. I don't need you to tell me what I'm doing. That can really come off. Once you understand that, you know how to work around that. And that was actually one of the first guys I closed. I told him, I don't know how you do what you do. And I acknowledge that. Because again, if you know they're a very prideful group, nothing wrong with that. You just have to know who you're talking to. You know they're prideful, hype them up. You know what you're doing. I don't know the first thing about replacing side paneling. I don't. But let me tell you, I know a lot about this. And here are some case studies where I crushed it. And I don't even know about what he did. And look at this website. Look at what we did for him. Look at the analytics. Look at the screenshots. Look at the testimonial, right? Story-driven closing. And you can acknowledge you don't know anything about it. No, I don't. And you don't know a thing about marketing. Otherwise, you'd have this built out really well. But here's the cool part. I don't have to know what you do. And you don't have to know what I do in order for us to work together and make a lot of money, right? So it's always pivoting and being side by side and looking at the problem. So with the closing, we can go through a million different objections. I've got, talk to my spouse, talk to my partner, too expensive, don't have the money, need to think about it. It's not a good time. There's never a good time. Like how busy is a business owner? right? How many of you are working full-time jobs and starting this? There's never a good time. I'll tell you the best time today. The best time is always today, because let's look at SEO. SEO's history, how long you've had a website, plays a massive role. How long you've had a Google business profile plays a massive role. That's why one of the questions are, how long have you been in business? Let's look at ad campaigns for people who think they can just jump in and start running ads. John runs tons of ads, and he can back me up on this. When you have a pixel, the longer you have a pixel, the more it actually gets to know your audience on these social media platforms. Therefore, the better it will perform, because it knows this is the audience profile. This is the Facebook data makeup of someone that will convert. Yeah, he's giving the thumbs up. Longer is always, always, always better. Now, obviously, there's the asterisk we want quality as well. We're all giving quality. If not, reach out to me. I'll show you how to. But we're all giving quality as well, right? So, the end of the day, it's the best time to do it is now, right? I want to wait. Of course, you can wait. Here's what's going to happen when you wait. You still need the program, right? Because you're still at point A and you still want to get to point B. We know that starting sooner rather than later makes a huge difference, because these things compound: the pixel, the SEO, the digital presence, the reviews. More reviews, it's proven, more reviews, more click-through rate. So nothing changes when you leave here, except my prices go up every 3 clients. So here's what we can do. We can get it done today, and then you can focus on other important things while I start scaling your business for you. Or you can reach back out to me in 2 or 3 weeks when our prices have increased 30%, and we can start then as well. We'll start a little bit later for a little bit more money, but whatever you want to do works for me. I just used this close the other day on someone, and guess what they did? So my package for them is $3,500. I told them, hey, I've got to and this is honest to God the truth. My prices increased last Monday, 30%. The guy, and this is what I was telling Tim earlier with the bell curve, with the presentation, right? The guy was like, I can't make the call. I'll take the price increase. Sweet. I just made 30% more on the exact same client. So now I'm looking at, it's like roughly $4,700 a month, because he didn't want to close on the $3,400 a month. Great. I'll take it. But no problem with me. I'm going to provide the exact same result, and he just cost himself an extra, 30% a month. So with those objections, always, always, always the same. Look at the problem, share the negative repercussions of not stepping in, use the emotional connection, use the call framework, which I'm going to share, and you can actually copy the document. This will be the first one where you can actually copy it. So if you want to, feel free to. The reason I don't share it, by the way, is because a lot of people copy and resell it. I've caught a lot of people, kicked out a lot of people out of the group because I've caught them copying and reselling. So that's been why I haven't shared it. But this one will be fully public for you guys to copy, share, resell. It really doesn't matter with this one. This one is just strictly a compilation. These aren't all my objection handling. These are some where I pulled from other people. This is the framework I've taken from about 4 to 5 really strong closers. I've manipulated it into my own. That's worked really well. So that's why I don't keep this one private, because I have copied and improved some methods and combined some other ones. So I want you to do the exact same thing. I want you to do the exact same thing. But that's essentially what happens with all of these, right? Now, with the pricing, I want to wrap up with this and then see if we have any questions. With the pricing, I've mentioned this before. I want to mention it again. We diminish the pricing. So once we're done, and I want to say, John mentioned this, I think. Once we're done, and John, I see your comment. I'm going to read it in 2 seconds. Once we're done with the presentation, rewinding back to step 9, acknowledge the gap. We stop talking at the end of the presentation. We don't even say about money, nothing. They either say, cool, let's move forward with the next steps. What's the price? Or they say, the objections. We talked about the objections. They say, cool, what's the price? We are not going to say it's $700. No, we're going to show them the science, the math, the formula behind it. So for example, you're at 5K, you want to be at 25K. That's a 20K a month problem. So then we use one of 2 formulas, the 20-10 or the 10-5. You're basically going to say, here's the 20-10. You want to get to 20K a month, or 25K a month. That's a 20K a month problem, right? So it would make sense paying about $4,000 a month to get a 5X ROI, right? Here's the good news. It's only 2K a month. So you actually get a 10X ROI every single month. Like, that's almost unheard of, right? That's nuts. And then you wait And there's one of two things you can do here. You can either wait after you say that. If they say, cool, move forward, or you can further validate your price. You can say this. On the other hand, if this is a $20K a month problem, when have you ever seen a $300, $500, $700 tool fix a $20,000 problem month after month after month? The answer is never, right? That's the answer. It's never. So you're going to diminish your price and then you're going to show value. It's this much because we're solving this much of a problem. Like brain surgery isn't cheap because we're working on your brain. You see what I'm saying? Like if I have a burst pipe in my house and the water's already leaking, that water damage is expensive. Why? Because I have to replace structural components of my home, right? The wire, maybe some of the wiring, maybe some of the insulation, maybe the plaster, right? So with these problems, there has to be a price point that makes sense. And again, if they're like, well, I want it cheaper, cool. Here's what happens with the cheaper. Either A, I can give some things away, like we sacrifice some things and we meet in the middle, or B, here's one of my favorite objection handlings. In the past, when you've gone with cheaper, has that worked out for you? How has that worked out for you? Right? That's essentially what you're looking at the problem together. How has going cheaper worked out for you in the past? I want it to be cheap and fast. Cool. Anytime you get something cheap and fast, what does that look like? Because to me, when I hear cheap and fast, I think fast food. And when I'm craving a good burger, I don't want, no offense, I don't want McDonald's, right? I want a nice, juicy, little bit pricier burger, right? So you're essentially diminishing cheap options. You're also saying, hey, it could be $4,000 a month, but it's only $2,000. It could be $2,000 a month, but it's only $1,000. So you're telling them, well, I could go cheaper. Yeah. And I could charge 10, 20% of what I'm going to make, but I'm only charging 5, 10%, right? You're exactly right. You could go cheaper. We could sacrifice some things or you go with a cheaper option. When that fails or when that doesn't get the results you want, because here's how people usually price these things. It's usually based off of a 10, usually, honestly, it's usually a 5 to 10x, right? Whatever they charge, they're trying to make you 10x what you paid them. That's usually how it goes. So cool. You go cheaper, you're going to make less. Yeah, great. You can go with that option. I can also provide that option by sacrificing some things here and there. So it's all about looking at the problem with them, bridging the gap, but you also need to be assertive. It's too expensive. Well, I can go cheaper. No, I can go more expensive if you want. This is the price why it is, because case studies acknowledge the gap. You have a $20K problem and you're telling me you want to pay $300 for a $20K problem. When has that ever been a thing? It's never been a thing, right? So this is essentially the process you're going through is you're validating your pricing. So objection handling, usually here's what happens. There's a reason, there's 1 to 2 things that they're usually stuck on. If there's multiple things they're stuck on, they're going to jump, right? There's like, not for me. But usually it's 1 or 2 things. And so you have to use those objection handlings. Most of what we do is soft sales. Once it comes to the objective handling, you got to be a little firm. You do have to be a little firm because it's not so much that they will walk all over you, but people will ask 1,000 questions to procrastinate. Well, what about this? What about, they know what they need to do. They already have the answer. What do you host on? We already talked about it, right? Well, what's the process, right? We've already talked about it. I don't have the budget. Well, we already talked about it, right? Assign responsibility. What's your budget for this? Right? So it boils down to, I don't see the value. Cool. What part of it is giving you, you're at a 1 to 10. Where are you at? I'm at a 9. Why? Okay. What would it take for you to get to a 10? Or what's keeping you at a 9? I'm at a 6. What's keeping you at a 6? Well, nothing really. I guess I'm just scared to get started. Cool. That's why we have the risk reversal. So that's why we use the structure the way we use it. Here's my favorite one-liner as I was writing today. And I don't know if someone else has said this, so if I'm just like subconsciously recycling it, I'm not going to take credit. But at the end, when you tell them the pricing, don't speak, right? This is where silence is your best friend. All right. You've talked, you're going to be talking all meeting, back and forth, but this is where the pressure comes in. Okay. Here it is. Ready? Prospects will talk themselves into a sale, but if you keep talking, you will talk them out of the sale. Okay. Prospects will talk themselves into a sale. They will rationalize it. But if you keep talking, if you keep info dumping, if you keep pushing, you will talk them out of a sale. So don't, right? any questions that should have been covered if you followed the previous sections. So the only options are your objections and finalizing the deal. And again, the objections, if you ready, what do you host on? High level. Well, how much is it a month? We talked about that already. This much a month. What does that include? This. You can be that short. We've been friendly all meeting. We're going to wrap it up where you're basically getting right to the point with these questions. And you're the less, like John said, first one to speak loses. You tell them the price, sip your water, sip your coffee. And they'll either go, like Tim said, cool, let's go with it. Let's move forward. Or the objections come in. When the objections come in, firm to the point, boom, boom, boom. Don't be rude, but to the point, direct. Because they're asking questions you already addressed. And does that make sense, or any confusion or questions there? Awesome. So this presentation will come out. Thank you. I appreciate that, Tim. This presentation is going to come out over the weekend. It's going to be more in depth. This is a presentation that is going to be a little longer. I'm going to go back and I'm going to break down the other trainings. A few of the trainings I cannot break down. This one I'm not going to break down because it needs to be cohesive. It needs to be the full 10 steps. It will be roughly the same length as your calls will be. You will have in the description the document that you can copy. You can rebrand yourself. You can pull it up. I still go through frames, by the way, when I'm on calls. I've done 1,000 of them. I still have the framework up. You go through it. This will work for subscription. This will work for heights. I closed using this framework, $7,000 deals. I have a 15K deal I'm finalizing on Monday. This closes big ticket. This closes little ticket. And then just remember the bell curve, right? Low and high. They don't care so much about the gap. Middle, go through the gap, but expect a lot of questions. Yeah, John.
I was just gonna say, if it's okay with you, if anybody wants to role play with objections and stuff, and they want to reach out, I'm more than happy to um help.
Yeah, and I do want to follow up with what John is saying. When you have people DMing you, send me the screenshots of what to say if there's no pressure. Go through it. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go through it. I don't want you to say, hey, what do I say here? Because I might not be able to reply live time. I want you to go through it. I want you to, John does this, Imran does this, Michael does this. I want you guys to do it. Grant does this. Screenshot what happened, send it to me and be like, what did I do well? What did I not do well? Okay. Send it to me. We can review them. Any questions, concerns, comments, requests? Yeah, Grant.
So this is like kind of like a little bit going towards the beginning, like kind of what I was DMing you about today. Um, so I've been doing pretty well with like the more niche groups, like staying under the radar, like being like like connecting with people in that industry, like sounding like I know, like I damn near own a business like that. And so I haven't done any value bombs yet, and I can like just by seeing how you do it on like Dom stuff, like I can see how that definitely generates a lot of the DMs. So I've just been very cautious because like those guys, you're right, they'll tear anyone apart. Like they tear each other apart, not to mention marketers. And so I've just been like concerned about not really concerned, just like overthinking like value bombs and stuff. And my whole thing is so when I'm like commenting back and forth with someone, like not a post I made, but like within a post, like how do you like to like really friendly like push them to like talk to you more in a DM or without like
Love.
off any red flags?
Yeah, great. So here's what you do. Well, let me ask you very quickly. Just we're a little over time. I don't want to go too much longer. Do you have an example, like off the top of your head, of something you replied to?
Let me think. It's been a few cases. It's more of like So I'll do like almost like a comment value bomb. Like I have this like template I kind of, because I see that like I keep on like writing down things I see all the time, like in it. So I kind of have like a preset like what to say when I see this question. And the comment I always put out like always gets like 16, like 10, 5 to 16 like likes and love, whatever, on it. And sometimes people will respond like with either an objection about like one part of it, or
Yeah.
they'll like respond like just agreeing. It won't really be much of a question thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just kind of feel like I could take advantage of like those
No,
opportunities.
you're right. You're exactly right. So two things, people who object to you, this is actually how I made a mentor of mine $4,000 in it was a single Thursday. It was about 6 or 7 Thursdays ago. It's called contrarian commenting. If you see a post that directly conflicts with what you advise, and I do this in Dom's group all the time, someone says, "What's the best cold call email script?" I reply back and say, "None. Cold calling is dog doo-doo." And I put a thumbs down emoji. And they're like, "That's it. Well, what do you recommend?" Here's what I recommend. Oh, that makes sense. You ready? So here's the positive feedback. That makes sense. Thank you. Yeah, no problem. I have more content on my page. This is all I live, breathe, eat, sleep. Check out the page. And so why do we push to the page? If you did the step 3 properly, you have problem agitating content, which resonates. You have 2 videos a week. You have 2 posts a week. You have 2 images a week. Once a week, you have status delta content. And all of it has a call to action to apply in the funnel. All of it has a call to action to reach out with more questions. And you'll have people DMing you. You'll have people signing up in your funnel. I woke up to a one-on-one consulting call. That was a client that paid me. I've woken up to somebody DMing me and they want me to build a full 11 funnels, 1 website, full automation. They want email templates for 50,000 emails a month. That's a massive, massive deal for me. And I just wake up to that. And I'm not saying that to, really, please do not misread that. I'm not saying that to say, look at me and I'm killing it. I'm saying that to say what I'm telling you to do with your 90s, I know you're not pricing. I don't believe you're pricing that low, but let's say anyone is listening is pricing at $97. The same stuff I'm using to close at 97, I'm using to close at 15K, at 20K, at 42K deals across 6 months. It's the same exact approach. And that's what I love about this approach is that getting to that first increment, that's all you're doing. Once you're at 5K a month, guess what we're doing? We're taking the VSLs that performed well and we're testing those in ads. We're testing those. Now we're jumping into email because now we can say, hey, let's say I'm getting 1 reply every 1,000 emails. Cool. I need to send 20,000 emails. I need to increase my inputs significantly more if I'm at a 0.01 conversion rate to make this make sense. And my offer, right? Because remember, we're scaling our offer every 2 to 3 clients. My offer needs to be at the price point to where if I'm dumping this much money in, I have to get this much money back. Otherwise, I can't justify it. Right. So it's actually easier. Why is it easier to sell higher ticket items? Remember the bell curve. Number 1. Number 2, if I spend 10,000 on emails and I land 1 15K client, not great, but I made my money back plus some, right? So it's way easier to dump money into an ad campaign when your ticket offer is much, much bigger. Even if your ROI is abysmal, profit wise or multiplier wise, the dollar amount is still pretty clean. So am I recommending go out and waste your money? No, but if we're going to start dumping into ads, it's a lot easier to do it with a higher ticket item. So we at least have a positive ROI, and it's a lot easier to do when we've already validated our creatives. And I posted in the group, I think you reacted to it. I posted in the group, somebody who hopped on a page, jumped right into paid marketing. And what happened? Somebody commented, bro, this guy has 5 followers. And what are they implying? He's a loser, or they're implying nobody knows him, or they're implying he's a scammer, right? Imagine you build up your profile, you have 100, 200 people. I'm only at 146. So anyone's like, we need a big following. I'm at 146 people. I've landed a 7K deal. I have a 46K deal on the table. I have a 15K deal on the table. I have a luxury detailer in my area on the table. Haven't met with him yet. I have these massive deals on the table. 146 followers is nothing. My TikTok, I have 200. I haven't posted in months because I've been working on all the content for this. Still having people reach out to me, mostly videographers and photographers. I'm still closing. So the followers doesn't mean anything, but I know it's a long way to answer your question, Grant, but with the positive stuff, you push them to the content, they close. With the negative stuff, guess what happens? Let me ask you, Does social media know the difference between a positive and a negative comment?
No.
No. So what happens when people start arguing with you? This is why contrarian works so well. They're going to keep replying. And what happens? Social media says, this post is having crazy engagement. Let's promote it to more people in the group. Let's put it in front of more people. Let's put this in front of people who don't even follow them. Let's put this on their For You page, on their interest page. And what happens? Now you start getting traction and you start getting eyes on your business. And what's going to happen? Why do we take the antithetical approach? Because people either love you or they hate you. And those that love you go to your page and they follow you. Those that hate you argue with you, boosting your vision or boosting your visibility. And you can find more people that love you and more people that hate you. And that's why, like, if you're on TikTok, every once in a while well, I'll back up. My brother, he's like much, much younger than I am, 12 years younger than I am, sent me a video and it was like this, it was a soccer scene and it was like these young kids playing. It was like the worst soccer I've ever seen in my life. And it went viral because of how badly they were playing. It was just a bunch of people hating on them and then people defending them, right? So as long as you're not saying like horrible, like obscene things that people are reporting, like, yes, that's when social media knows, okay, this is too negative, but people liking or disliking you is just going to boost your exposure. That's all it's going to do. So you can so people who are arguing with you, Grant, number one, it helps. So don't let it stress you out. I know it's not, but just reiterating, don't let it stress you out. Number two, educate them. Hey, I don't like doing it this way because of X, Y, Z. These are the results I usually get. Use a story. Why? Story-driven marketing closes like crazy. Because if you're like, right, I'll tell you mine really quickly. I tried email. I tried ads. I tried pushing a product that I thought was good without validating it. I emptied about 8K of money and I made 2 sales on an 8K investment. That's awful. I'm the first one to tell you that's awful. So what happened? I had to learn how to land clients at $0. What did that do? That means everything I do is net profit. Everything I do is profit at $0, right? And then what happened? Oh, I can share other people how to do this. And for those of you, I don't see anybody who was with me in the early stages of the one-on-one. So you guys might not know the story. I didn't start SASO University until I actually replied in the same group, Greg, that you found me in. I replied to someone and I said, here's how I land clients for free. If you need help, just like John said, if you need help, reach out to me. It was a reply to one person. I said, one person, reach out to me if you need help. I had 31 people message me. I invited one person. I said, hey, if you need help, reach out to me. I had 31 people message me. I had like 9 comments saying, oh, I DM'd you. Oh, I DM'd you. Can I DM you? Hey, do you mind if I bother you? That's why I started the DIY plan of SASO University, because I was like, there's a massive demand for it. So use those, and that was me replying to someone who was saying, oh, you do cold calling. And I was like, don't do cold calling. And then I kept engaging, as you saw, in value posts. And so I know it's a really long-winded answer, but I'm saying it to say it all intertwines when you follow the process. Like John will tell you every day, if you talk to John about any of this, if you're like, I'm lost, the first thing he will say, John, give me a thumbs up if I'm right. The first thing he'll say is follow the process. It works. That's the first thing that he'll tell you, because it works. So I'm telling you, it works. There's the thumbs up. Number one. Number two, I did it myself first. So I know that it works, at least for me. Tried it with others. John is crushing it. Michael's sending me great screenshots. Grant, I know you're at the point where you're like, I've got this, I've got that. Here I am. You're finding your new sticking point and you're pushing past it. So what you're doing with those group posts is great replies. The value bomb. Follow the exact template. The exact template, which is, let me say this now and I'll get you real quick. The exact template, which is this. I see you're struggling with this. Here's how I fix it for me or for a client. Process. If you have any questions, comment them and I'll answer everything in the open to help as many people as possible. If somebody comments and go, oh, here's another marketer. Yeah, I am a marketer, but I just told you to comment your question. I had no call to action. So what are you upset about? Everyone's just going to see that guy's a hater and a loser. Anybody who's hating just to hate is a loser. Is that fair enough? Like, anybody disagree with that comment? If they're hating just to hate, they're probably a really sad person who probably needs your services. They're probably a loser. They're a hater because they have nothing going for them. And I honestly feel bad for that kind of individual. Imagine how sad your life has to be to just go looking to be mean to people, right? And Grant, that gives you a chance when they do say something nasty to reply back and show that, inject your personality. Hey, I get it. Marketers are really scummy people. That's something I have to deal with being in this field. That's why I want to give you a value bomb. That's why I ask people, ask your questions in the comments. I'll have as many people as you want. You know how many times I've done that? And then someone DMs me and they're like, thanks for sticking up for me. I'm stuck with here, here, and here. Or wow, like I can see he's a really good person. Or wow, like they were really kind of an asshole to him and he stuck it out and he was really nice and he wasn't reactive and he wasn't nasty back. That speaks volumes. That's the kind of people I want to work with.
Yeah, it was funny because it only happened once, and he was literally just he got so I basically how I laid out the comment, and I do it with a lot because I see the same questions. Is I preach what you're saying is like build your digital foundation before you start like paying for stuff and like blah blah blah. And so I basically had like Facebook do this, Google/search do this, in person do this, and then but he was just he was pointing out like something about Facebook, and I had like a really professional like invaluable response, and it just had 4 likes, and he never even answered. So like
Beautiful.
yeah.
You're crushing it then. You're like, and this is something I want to say this, and then I'll grab John's question, then we'll wrap up. Input, test, test, test. So whatever you're doing, do it times 10 for 10 times longer. And essentially what happens, this is basic statistics, as the sample of what you're testing or collecting approaches the population size, you'll get more accurate information. So for example, if I send 5 messages and none of them reply, I could still be sitting on something that gives me an 8% conversion rate. I have to hit 100 people to know, am I really at an 8% conversion rate, right? It's like if I flip up a penny, this is science, right? This is math and statistics. If I flip a penny 100 times, I'm not going to get 50-50. But the more I flip that penny, once I flip it 1,000, 10,000, 1,000,000 times, statistically, that number of heads to tails will approach 50-50. Now, nobody reply and say tails is heavier, so excuse it. Ideal world, right? Like digital coin. John, let me get your question and then we'll wrap up.
No, I just wanted to kind of follow up with what Grant said. That's actually what he's talking about is actually how I got majority of the inbound leads I got. I actually, there was somebody that was bragging about a huge, messaging campaign they ran, and the numbers were stupid high cost per click. They were stupid high cost per result. And I professionally interjected. I was like, hey, realistically, those numbers aren't that great. What's your conversion rate? As that conversation went on, I ended up getting 4 leads out of that conversation alone. And I've got meetings set up with 3 of them already. So for me, that's been the easiest way to get leads. But I also run ads too. And
and that's why that's why it works so well, because the group engagement, it's something you can actively do to attract inbound leads. So it's not quite inbound. It's not quite out. It's not quite them reach out to you. It's not quite you reach out to them. It's I'm showing I'm good at what I do. Naturally, people will approach you. I'm showing I'm single. People approach you interested, right? And again, at least while I'm saying this, I got married once. I want to be married once. I don't want to, go through finding that again. You only have to find one person to get married to if marriage is your goal, right? You don't have to have everybody swooning over you. It's not realistic, right? I'm not a celebrity. Even celebrities, people say like, oh, this guy, everyone, Ben Affleck or Robert Downey Jr. or, Johnny Depp. Some people find them super attractive. Some people find them super ugly. Same for the females, right? Some people find them super attractive. Some people say they're super ugly. It's not to convert everyone. See, John, we're going to wrap up real quick. So it's not to convert everyone. It's just to convert enough people, right? If you had 50 people, let me back up. If you had 10 people a month paying you $2,000, $3,000 a month, right? That means you only need 10 businesses that are qualified. Are there more than 10 businesses that are qualified? Yes. How do you get to charging them $2,000 a month? You start off at $97 to $497. Every couple of clients, you increase your pricing. Look at the training. You can keep them or you can molt them off, right? So Grant, great question. The honest to God truth of it, every day, this is what you guys should be doing. And then we'll end the call. Wake up, or it doesn't have to be right when you wake up, but when you start, always start with your content. Then you start with your outreach, least to most direct, just like the step 4 training. Then you go into your fulfillment or your auditing if you have VAs who are fulfilling for you. That's how your work schedule should go. Content creation, group engagement, minimum every day. Then if you have more time, direct outreach.
So
But
definitely, sorry.
go, no,
So
go ahead.
prioritize the more of the engaging and like getting your face out there type of work first, and
Yes.
then kind of get your 10 outbound in when you can.
Yeah. And then the reason why, remember, if we can only send 10 messages a day, what if you message somebody that you could have got to message you? Right.
Yeah,
The-
I'm not having too much luck with the with the cold DMs.
So, hey, check it out. Drop the cold DMs, double up your group engagement.
All right, yeah.
That's what I would do. And test everything. I give you a script, use it, use another version. It's called the ABC test. So you split 2 things, whatever does better, you keep, and then you split 2 variations. Whatever does better, you keep, and you split 2 variations. And you just test and test and test and test. The more you put in the reps, the more you'll get comfortable pivoting, like we talked about on the call. The more you put in reps of objection handling, the more natural it'll feel. I've been doing this for years. I still have my call flow up, but I guarantee you, I don't need it. I have it up because it's a confidence thing. It's like again, weightlifting. I lift weights all the time. Sometimes I just need a spotter there. The second I have a spotter there, I throw the weight up. It's just a mental thing. The spotter steps away, I'm not going as fast. Nothing changed. You didn't touch the weight. It's just a confidence thing. So, good call. I really appreciate you guys engaging. Any questions, do not hesitate. Melt my phone. I'm going to post the recording of this tomorrow. I'm also going to post the step 5 training tomorrow. Sunday, I'm going to have the marketing audit template. And that's also going to have a checklist. Super excited to have a full checklist you can copy. As you go through the marketing audit, you can literally check it off to make sure you hit every single thing. So you guys enjoy your weekend. Anything you need, reach out to me. But otherwise, really appreciate you guys coming out.